Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are back with another weapon breakdown, and as you guys can tell by the title of this one, today we are once again covering the PBX-45. Before we get into it, if you guys do end up enjoying the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new to the channel, then definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications, as there is going to be plenty more content like this on the way in 2022. With that being said though, guys, let's get stuck right into my weapon breakdown for the PBX-45. So the PBX-45 is obviously classed as an SMG, and this is one of the weapons that you have unlocked when you first fire up the game. It has a magazine size of 30 plus 1 in the chamber, and it fires at a rate of 799 rounds per minute, which is the second slowest rate of fire in that class. Now for its reload times, it takes 2.33 seconds for a tactical reload, which is when you manually reload it, or it has an empty reload time of 2.95 seconds, which is when it is automatically reloaded after running out of bullets. As for the velocity, it sends its ammunition down range at 400 meters per second, which is again the second slowest out of the SMGs currently in the game, but only by a tiny bit in most cases, so it is pretty much on par with those other weapons. Now getting into the more detailed stats for the PBX-45, keep in mind that these values are all based off of body shots, and when it comes to the SMGs, headshots have a 2 times multiplier, so any value that you see in these graphs are just doubled when you land them to the head rather than the torso or the limbs. The PBX-45 deals 28 damage per bullet up to 9 meters, then between 10 and 29 meters it drops down to 22 damage per shot, between 30 and 49 meters it deals 18 damage per shot, from 50 to 99 meters it drops down to 15 damage per shot, and then at 100 meters and beyond it drops down to 13 damage per shot, so it has a relatively smooth drop off there. Comparatively, here are all the other weapons in the same class, and as you can see, that is roughly in the middle of all of those weapons when it comes to the damage over distance. As for the bullets that it takes to kill over distance, it takes 4 shots to kill up to 9 meters, between 10 and 29 meters it'll take 5 shots to kill, between 30 and 49 meters it'll take 6 shots to kill, between 50 and 99 meters it'll take 7 shots to kill, and then at 100 meters or beyond it'll take 8 shots to the body to kill an enemy. Again, here are those comparisons with the other weapons in the SMG class. Once again, it is pretty much right there in the middle, which is to be expected, as this one is kind of the jack of all trades when it comes to the SMGs. Lastly, moving on to the time to kill over distance, it kills in 225 milliseconds up to 9 meters, then 300 milliseconds between 10 and 29 meters, between 30 and 49 meters it'll kill in 375 milliseconds, from 50 to 99 meters it'll kill in 450 milliseconds, and from 100 meters and beyond it will take 525 milliseconds to kill. Again, here are those comparisons with the other weapons in the SMG class, and I'll probably have to say this in every episode really, but as important as the time to kill or TTK stat is, it can often be very misleading as well. In this instance, for example, the PBX-45 does have almost the equal slowest time to kill of the SMGs, which up close is definitely correct, but then at range it does tend to shoot more accurately than the others. So this graph obviously can't account for missed shots, therefore it makes the PBX seem kind of weak at range, when in reality it is actually really solid at range, so just be sure to keep that in mind. Now moving on, we have the recoil pattern for the PBX-45, and as you can see, it is relatively simple compared to a lot of other weapons in the game. It essentially just recoils vertically, and it doesn't actually even have that much vertical recoil either, and then it just has some very slight horizontal recoil, but it's sort of hardly enough to even really notice it. Now moving on, as always, I've crafted 3 different loadouts that I often like to use on the PBX-45, so if you're not 100% sure on what attachments to use, then hopefully this can give you a good starting point, and obviously these can be slightly altered and adjusted to your own preferences. The first loadout that I wanted to cover is what I like to call the hipfire build, and this one is really fun to use in any close quarter situations. Hipfire on SMGs is surprisingly really solid, and I think it gets underused in pretty much every single Battlefield game, to be honest, so definitely give this one a crack to see how well it can handle without ADSing. For the sight, I use the Fusion Hollow simply because that is the one that I like the best, but obviously when you are hipfiring, the sight doesn't really come to play that much. For the ammo, I use the close combat rounds, which slightly reduce the effectiveness at range while increasing the rate of fire, lowering the recoil and reducing the reload speed, and they are also 35 round magazines as well. For the underbarrel, I use the LS1 laser sight, which obviously helps with that hipfire playstyle, and then lastly for the barrel I use the tactical compensator, as this one obviously just helps with the general accuracy of the weapon. Now moving on to the second loadout that I wanted to cover, this one is the added range build, and exactly as it sounds, this one just makes the PBX-45 a little bit more viable at that sort of mid to long range. For the sight, I use the UH1 Smart 1.5x scope. This one is a personal favourite of mine as it has a nice clear sight while also not being too zoomed in, which you definitely don't want with an SMG. For the ammo, I use the high power rounds as they just increase the bullet velocity of the weapon and slightly increase that damage at range at the cost of a little bit more recoil, a slower rate of fire, and a slightly slower reload speed. For the underbarrel, I use the LWG grip, and then lastly for the barrel, I use the extended barrel as this just increases the velocity of the weapon yet again at the cost of a slightly slower rate of fire. Like I said, this build is definitely going to make the weapon more effective at range, but it's not going to turn it into a sniper, so you definitely want to still sort of keep to those, I guess, close to mid-range engagements, with this build being mostly focused on the mid-range. Now lastly, for the third loadout, this one is called the all-rounder build, and this is essentially the loadout that I use 80% of the time when I'm running the PBX. For the sight, I use the Fusion Hollow again as this is just my favourite. For the ammo, I use the extended mag. For the underbarrel, I use the LWG grip again, and then lastly for the barrel, I use the tactical compensator once again. Like I said, this is my personal favourite build for the PBX-45, and it is the one that I'm running with more often than not. Personally, I do think this is the best overall loadout for the weapon, so hopefully you guys do enjoy this one as much as I do. So that is pretty much it for the PBX-45, guys. Personally, I really enjoy using this one, and I believe it is actually one of my most used weapons during Season 1, as I kind of just became addicted to using it for no apparent reason. So hopefully this guide helps you guys when it comes to the stats and the loadouts for this one. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like down below. If you are new, then consider subscribing to the channel, and if you guys want to support the content that I make here on YouTube, then consider becoming a channel member. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.